What is up, y'all? Happy Saturday. As happy as it can be, right? So we're going to get into obviously talking about this week's events and how they unfolded and, what it looks like here in the Tampa Bay area. I'm going to talk a little bit about, what's going on down south. You know, Thanks for checking in on me. I think the first thing I'd like to say to everybody, watching today, or has reached out to me over the last week it's been incredible. I mean, if I showed you my Instagram account, it's insane between that and the Facebook messages and the direct messages and the text messages. I just want to say thanks to everybody who checked in on us. It's been awesome to know that there's that kind of support. And today's live, I just want to do something a little bit different. I definitely want to keep this thing short. First thing I want to say is this: we're safe, my family, and I'm going to kind of unpack. I'm going to share the story of how this went down, what we did to prepare, where I evacuated to, what I came home to, what I've discussed with my neighbors and friends. I think that that'll be helpful for anybody who is, looking at making the move here. If you've got questions, please put them in the comments down below of any of these videos, whether you're watching us on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever you're at. I'd be happy to get to them the best that I can. Over the week here. Forgive my voice too. I've been sick during all of this as well. And then this coming week, I'm actually going to do something special. This coming Wednesday, I'm going to do a live with one of the vendors we use, the inspection company that we use here in Tampa Bay. And Ryan and his team at Home Hello Home Inspections are incredible. They're doing something very cool for their clients, which I think is great. They are offering a re-inspection for any properties that they have under contract, which I think is awesome. But the reason I want to bring him on is not specifically just talk about real estate, but to talk about how to prepare your home during a hurricane, for a hurricane, what to look for after a hurricane, the things that we may not know as layman, right? I'm not a general contractor. I'm pretty handy. I know enough to know that when I'm going to get myself in trouble, I need to hire somebody. That's the best way I'd put that. But yeah, man, it's been an interesting week. Emotionally, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And look, I know that if you're new to our channel, forgive me, right? You're showing up on YouTube, and the first thing I want you to know is I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not going to play one on TV. I'm not going to tell people to do anything to put themselves in harm's way. So if you're coming here for that, you're in the wrong space. We're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to show some images that I pretty darn scary overall. But again, what I think would be the most helpful is just kind of help people understand how to prepare for something like this and what you can expect in your community afterwards, because these are the questions that I get asked most often. When people come here, they ask the big three. And you guys are chiming in the comments. Thank you. Let me know where you're watching from. You guys are awesome. Thank you for that. And I'm gonna engage here in a second. But I always get the big three questions, like what about hurricanes, which is the same question I asked before I moved to the area as well. What about alligators? And how hot is it? These are the three questions that we get often asked. And I think it's important that we kind of address these and how we tackled it, how our friends and our clients tackled this time period as well. And, I'm going to try to keep it as brief as I can today and get you guys back to your week, but just know that we're going to be back to regularly scheduled programming next week. You can expect that from me. Like I said, it's been a little bit of a pause trying to get everything together for our community and for our household. So I just wanted to kind of share that. Chris says, happy to hear you guys are good. Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate that. We were very, very blessed, to say the least. David, hey, Juan, glad your family are okay. Yep. We're great, man. I actually, I'm going to get into this in the story here in a minute, but I spent the 2 nights in Orlando because that's where we thought would be best to get out, because when this thing started, the news was that it was headed directly our way and that we needed to get out of the path as quickly as possible, because this thing was tracking up, and it was moving super slow. And again, I'm not going to play meteorologist, so don't look for that for me, because that's not my thing, right? I talk about real estate. That's my thing. But I can share my story with you guys of how this went down, how it unfolded. And let me just give you a little bit of positioning. We live less than right around 1 mile from the beach as the crow flies, right? If I can get in a plane and head right to the Gulf of Mexico, we're about 1 mile away. And that's pretty darn close. And when this storm started to kick up, I think it was pretty obvious early. They were making a bunch of noise that this thing was going to be pretty big. They expected it to be a major hurricane. Now, I live in Florida and I've been here for 4 years. And there's this thing about hurricane parties, and, Floridians are afraid of the cold, but not afraid of hurricanes. And that stuff is true at some level. Like whenever something is a stereotype, there's truth in it, right? And good jokes are only funny when there's truth in them. And there's some real truth to what those memes show and what it is. When it dips below 70 here, people start breaking out winter gear and coats. It's crazy. But there is this attitude of like, if it's not a Cat 3 or higher, we're not even really paying attention. And again, I'm not here to judge people for what it is or what is not. I am not a quote unquote true Floridian, right? I relocated here 4 years ago. My father-in-law has been here for 25 years. I've been visiting this place since I was in my teens. So I've seen quite a few hurricanes come and go, and from a distance, which is ignorance, right? So let me just put that out there. But living through one is an entirely different situation, and understanding how to prepare for that is a different thing. So over the weekend, this thing starts to spool up, right? I was in Orlando for a conference the entire previous week, Tuesday through Saturday. And on Friday, it became pretty evident that this thing was going to form, and it was going to do something. They start running their projections and their models. Come Saturday, it was pretty apparent that it was good. They were talking about it heading somewhere between the Panhandle and Tampa. So this already started to clarify a little bit. So I came home. Kate and the kids were actually back home in Detroit visiting family. And we had them scheduled to come home on Tuesday. And on Saturday, I had Kate call the airline and reschedule. They're scheduled to come home tomorrow, actually. So it's been quite some time. I haven't been away from my wife this long since ever. Ever. So this has been weird, man, for us and the family, and definitely been challenging, right? So but I come home, and here's the crazy stuff, guys. And I'm sharing my personal story, right? I'm not trying to speak outside of what it is. But I came home, and it was pretty evident this thing was headed somewhere towards the Tampa Bay area. That's where all the projections had it, all the models, everybody's had it coming to Tampa Bay. So I came home on Saturday, woke up on Sunday morning, and I play guitar in the worship band at church. And I was feeling pretty rough. I was around 5,000 people for 5 days. If you're going to get sick, that's probably going to be the time to do it. I woke up on Sunday feeling pretty rough, took a COVID test. It was negative, didn't have a fever yet, went to church, went through the first service, and I was sick. And, so I was like, guys, I got to go home. I went home and I passed out. I fell asleep from 12:30 to 7:30 the next day. So I woke up on Monday morning. And when I woke up on Monday morning, it was go time. We had to get the house to get I didn't have a choice, right? So I started buttoning down the house. And again, I want to share this with you guys. Like, what do you do in these situations? Like, I've done all the quote unquote homework and research, but just like any good plan, and once you get punched in the mouth, things change, right? And I lost an entire day because I had a fever, and I literally was unconscious for quite some time, almost 24 hours, right? So I get out and I start clearing the pool deck, and there's this, you'll see these stories of people throwing their patio furniture in the pool. I didn't do that. But I know it's common practice, and it makes sense, right? Like, it's not going to fly away. Now, our pool has a covered lanai. They call them a bird cage, and it's just a big giant screen. It protects you from UV and bugs, obviously. Keeps the junk out of the pool too. And I thought for sure we were going to lose it. I'm like, that thing's going to go away based upon the strength of the hurricane at that point, which I think was like a Cat 1, but it was they were like, it's going to be a cat 3 at least when it hits you guys, buckle up. And you're like, okay, so you're getting everything ready. I went and got sandbags from the county because they give sandbags away. And this is one of the things, like, you try to learn these things and what's best practices. So let me take a step back. I wake up, I'm still groggy. I talk to Kate. I clear the pool deck immediately. I turn my table over flip it upside down, right? So it's laying down, put all the patio chairs together, pull them off the deck, pull everything loose in the yard comes out, right? The grill, everything goes in the garage. I take everything off. I go to Home Depot, and I was sharing this on Instagram Live. I go into Home Depot and the place was rocking already, but it wasn't quite nuts yet. It was just about to erupt. I had walked in just early enough. It was like 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning. I bought enough plywood for all the windows. And then I'm standing there and I see this guy's piling up sand. And I was like, well, I'm going to get sand from the county, because I did this back in 2020 when we had a scare of a hurricane and it wasn't that big of a deal. So it's a misstep, and I'm sharing this with you because I think there's value in sharing this part of the story. I could have bought sand there, but I was like, well, I'll just go get it from the county. And the reason being is because I don't know if you guys have ever bought play sand before, but those bags leak all over the place. It's a nightmare. So I was like, I really don't want to deal with that. It's going to be a mess. Here I am complaining about a mess, right? So like, now I'm going to go shovel sand, and they give you these really nice like Mylar bags at the county. And Indian Rocks Beach at Cobb Park was giving sand away. You could go to Walsingham. It's very effective. They've been doing this a long time, right? So you show up and you load up. So I get 20 huge bags of sand. Well, when I showed up to the line, it was already out onto the main road, and our park is a mile and across. The last time I did this, I drove in and had to wait just a little bit. It took me 4.5 hours to get sand. So I'm sharing this with you guys because we here in Tampa knew that we had plenty of notice that this was probably heading our way. Almost 3 full days, right? And just doing one thing took me 4.5 hours to prepare my house. That doesn't include the 2 hours prior to that. And I'm sharing this with you guys because there's been so many people that have been jumping online complaining about people not getting out of their homes. And if that's you, I want you to check yourself really quick, because you didn't live through that. The people south of us, they did not have this kind of notice, right? That now our governor made it very clear that anywhere on the Gulf Coast could be a problem, y'all. But when a normal hurricane is half the size of what came through here, people take it. I understand why they take it differently, or maybe they weren't preparing as much, right? There was 2.5 million people approximately who evacuated the Tampa Bay area alone. Okay. And some of them headed south to Cape Coral or Fort Lauderdale because they were told for a week that it was planning on heading north, right? And going to hit the Tampa area or further north. And y'all, I know, and I'm sorry to be direct about this, but like, it's the thing that breaks my heart right now. There were people who didn't get to pivot. If it took me 4.5 hours to get sandbags for my house on Monday for a storm that was coming on Wednesday, right? And we were told we were preparing, right? And I felt like I was tight on time. Okay. I came home. By the time I got home, I had an hour left to put the boards up. Now I'm going to share another story. I'd never put boards into a block house before. I'm not a mason. I'm not a general contractor. I don't know what that takes. Well, I learned a pretty tough lesson that day. Obviously I wasn't feeling well. I had somebody blessed enough to come over and offer help. And then I tried to put one screw in that wall. And what do you think happened? Right? I knew I had to drill, but I didn't know that my drill wouldn't go through that block. I didn't know I needed an impact driver to make it happen. So I had to learn this thing on the fly. So I called my buddy who's a brick, block, and stone mason. Shout out to Tex Martinez back home in Allen Park, Michigan. He said, Juan, this is the drill and an impact driver you need. Go to Home Depot. They say they have it. So I drove my butt back up to Home Depot to get this. And I'm sharing this with you guys because I want you to understand how these events can unfold, right? So at this point, I'm like, do I button up the house or do I get out of here? Right? Because this is Monday going into Tuesday. And what I know is that there are a ton of people who are evacuating the area. That morning, they started the evacuation notices. So this is Monday. Okay. I live in Pinellas County. I'm 1 mile, just 1 mile away from the water. Okay. Our home is in a non-flood, non-evacuation zone, which is crazy. If I show it to you on the map, it'll blow your mind. Okay. You can do this in the county. You can literally go to the county and it shows you where the evacuation maps are. The high places in the county, we're there. Listen, y'all, I'm not playing Russian roulette with God. I'm not doing it. We knew we were leaving. I was out of here. I'm never going to be the guy who's testing the hurricane. Here's why. You can hide from the wind. Our buildings are made of block. Like I said, I couldn't even get this wood in there. I'm going to get back to this in a second. Couldn't even get the wood on the wall. Like I wasn't worried about my house going away, but you can't hide from a storm surge, right? People trying to get in their attics, like it's just crazy, y'all. So I knew I was evacuating. My family's up north. I felt pretty good about that. So I made the decision that I'm going to stay one more day. I'm going to stay till Tuesday. I'm going to wake up first thing at daybreak and I'm going to get my butt to work on putting these holes in the wall and putting these boards up on the house. And I made the decision that if nothing else, I'll just do the kids' rooms, because if we come home and the house is jacked up, I just want my kids' rooms to be sane. Now, I wasn't worried about flood surge here. We're 30 feet above sea level. And that's low. I know most of you looking from across the country are like laughing. But here, that's high. Okay. So I wasn't worried about our house being underwater from the Gulf of Mexico, but we were supposed to get 2 feet of rain. So I knew we were going to get wet, right? Knew we were going to get wet. And our house is already flooded twice. Okay. We have a sunroom that lets water in. It's a long story and I don't want to get into it, but it happens. So again, sandbags, wood, drill, wake up the next morning. That evening, a friend of mine, the only person I knew in St. Peter's, in the entire Tampa Bay area when we moved here, reaches out to me because he saw me on Instagram, says, "Hey man, I'm in the area. Do you need help? I'll come." I was like, you know what? I would love your help in the morning if you're open to it. He got his butt here. Justin Rohrer, I love you, brother. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And excuse me if I'm emotional, guys, because it's been Justin shows up and we board up the house. His wife is a doctor at Tampa General who was a mandatory. They put hydro walls, literally 8-foot walls all the way around the hospital to protect Tampa General, because that's the only place where people would go. Excuse me. Did not know this was going to happen. It's the only place where people are going to go if there's a problem, right? So Justin shows up. We put all the holes in the wall. And he tells me that he's going to take his kids and head down to his in-laws, who are in Lehigh Acres, y'all. This is right outside of Cape Coral. And because his wife's going to be in the hospital for 3 days. He's like, I don't want the kids to be away from their family. And, I'm worried to death about them. We don't know what's going to happen. But we get it done. That's it. I put the sandbags up, and I'm going to do a whole video on all the things that I learned about how to prepare so people can use that in the future. But we get this done like 3 hours, right? And that's it. I'm done. I'm out of here. Kate got me a hotel in Orlando because when this thing started, we were trying to figure it out. I was going to go to Fort Lauderdale. That was the original plan. I was going to head south too, because of the way that this thing looked and the way they were talking about it on Sunday and Monday. She ended up getting me a place in Orlando, and we knew that the storm track was changing. But at that point, I was already committed, and I was pretty confident that in a steel structure, a hotel, even if it was a Category 1, that I'd at least be out of harm's way from flooding and those types of things. So I got in the car, and it took me almost 7 hours to get from our house to Orlando. Now, when traffic's crazy, it can take me up to 3 hours anyways. But I made it to over the bay because we were empty. Everybody evacuated the county like they were supposed to, right? The streets were dead. But I made it over the bay in 30 minutes, which is super fast. It's like going at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then the taillights, right? And then you're just sitting there, and you're sitting there, and you're sitting there. Now, my story is nothing compared to what people south of us have experienced. I made it to the hotel safely. It was inconvenient, whatever, right? But I want to share this with you because I had never lived through this. And I sat in our hotel room and the wind started up it started, Wednesday during the day. Let me make sure I got my days right. Yeah, Wednesdays during the day. And about 7:30 at night, the wind just started howling. And I was on the top floor of this hotel, 7th floor, Crown Plaza, right in Lake Buena Vista, right by Disney. Disney canceled Wednesday and Thursday. They closed. They've only done it 8 times in the entire history of Disney, and they closed for 2 days, right? So this was going to be 9 and 10. And at 7:30, the winds just started cranking. I was like, okay, it's loud. It wasn't nuts though, 65 mile an hour gust or whatever it was. 50, somewhere in there. Again, not a meteorologist, and I didn't go back and look at all the records, but it was cranking down. I couldn't sleep. It kept getting louder and louder and louder, and you could hear stuff. And you hear these noises in the hotel now, and now you're paying attention, like what is happening, right? And I knew that I was in the path. I knew that I had the decision to go to Orlando put me directly in the path. I actually would have been safer if I stayed at home, but who the heck is going to stay home, right? I live a mile from the water, and even though I'm in a non-evacuation zone, so what if I'm here? Like the way I thought about it is if the hurricane hit Tampa Bay directly and I'm in a non-evac and I don't get flooded, great. But there's 3 bridges to get out of here. And if you've seen any of the video down south, you know that those bridges just go away. And I didn't want to be stuck here trying to figure out how to get out. So, that's why I made the decision. But the wind started cranking out. I actually fell asleep about 12 o'clock. And was woke back up at 12:30 from the wind noise. And then I never went back to sleep again until about 5 o'clock. I just got exhausted and passed out. And it was just humming all night long. And it's me and the dog. My Doberman is like losing her mind, right? She won't go outside, which no one's going outside at that point. But she's anxious, pacing the hotel. There's dogs and kids. I mean, it was just nuts, right? Guys, I'm sharing this experience with you just so you can understand, some people have a hard time trying to figure out why people don't do things the way they do, or they do. And I just share this with you so you can understand that things don't, having a plan is great, but once the battle starts, it's a whole different thing. And I'm fine. Just kills me. So it just cranks through. And at about 7:45 a.m., it just stopped. It stopped. Now, winds were gusting around, but that loud, and I don't know what the wind speeds got up in Orlando. They had to be 8,500 miles an hour for sure, because when I left, now, as soon as I got a break, I knew I was coming home. I was like, I got to come home and try to get my house together, because I didn't want my family to come home. They were already nervous to just a hot disaster. And if they did, I want it to be the smallest hot disaster it could possibly be, right? I don't know if our house was going to be flooded. I didn't know if there was going to be trees down. I had no idea what we were coming home to, And so I jumped out as soon as the hurricane went a little bit north. Wind gusts were probably 35 miles an hour, so I knew we could go. I've got a very heavy vehicle. I wasn't worried about that stuff. I pulled out of the hotel. I didn't make it a quarter mile, and there was a car up to its windshield on the main road, flooded out, coming out of this driveway from a business. And this is in Orlando, right? Almost, it's 100 miles from, it's across the state, right? And then I hop on the highway. And if you've ever been to Disney, just like most big areas in Florida, we put these beautiful palms out in the middle of the highway, right? And these things look like they had been beat to death with a dull hatchet from a 2-year-old. I mean, missing limbs. They were just beat. It was immediate. Wow, this is going to be interesting. And then I'm driving home, right? I'm driving home, and there's trees, and I'm getting close to Lakeland, and there's more stuff down, and billboards are all tore up. And I get closer and closer to Tampa, and I got to Tampa, and there wasn't a whole lot of anything happening there. Which was wonderful. We've got sticks in the air for anybody in construction. The big cranes that are building all these high rises and everything, they were still up, which made me feel pretty good. I got to the Bay, and the Howard Franklin Bridge, which is the main bridge that comes across. Once I'm on that, I just literally drive to the end of the earth and I'm home. And the Bay was still low, y'all. Like, it was crazy. And the winds had shifted. They were coming right out of the northeast. And so there was whitecaps on the north side of the Bay, and they're doing all this construction right now. And they tied all the cranes that are on these barges together so they could like act as one and move them away from the bridge for good reason. And then to the south of it, the Bay was still pretty low. It was starting to fill back up, but it was still pretty low. And then as I came into town, it was like a ghost town. Everything was closed up. Nobody was there. And then I pulled in the house, and we had some minimal damage. Fence panel come apart. We have a solar heater for our pool. I don't get any explanation of it, but that's trash. The storm pulled it off of there. And there's tree branches and stuff everywhere. But like my entire neighborhood, there's no trees down. Like we never lost power. Just absolutely feel blessed. And to come home and to see that, it's like this instant relief of like, okay, great. Like, we're good. But then you just really start to realize that, the people that you associate with, or you've come to know, and friends and family, like that you've come to bring into your world, since you moved here, they're not in the same situation. So we start reaching out to them. And obviously you can see the aftermath in Southwest Florida right now. We've got really good friends. They're not in the same spot. This was not my plan. So anyways, my call here is, if you can do anything to help those families, make sure you check on the people. They weren't being fools. Okay. Once this thing shifted, people were in trouble. And as you can see, you can board up whatever you want. When Mother Nature and good Lord decides to take something back, he's taking it. Right. And you could have boarded up anything. There was houses on stilts that aren't there anymore. The entire topography of Southwest Florida has changed, and it will be that way for years. Y'all. There are people who spent their entire, I'm from the North. Okay. I'm from Detroit. Canadians, Midwesterners, we'd come to Southwest Florida and dream about moving there one day. Right. That's what we do. We have memories from the beaches and seeing those white sand, and that stuff is going to be changed. Now we get an opportunity to do things, again, which is a blessing, but I just don't want to lose sight of the fact that people lost their lives, and it matters. And while there may have been some people who just thought that they were smarter than the planet Earth, I assure you, a majority of the people did what they could, did what they thought they were supposed to do, and some of them didn't have options. So I don't want to lose sight of that. And I'm not trying to drag this down, and I didn't mean to make this into this, but I wanted to share that story with you guys because it's real, right? It's very real. Now, very fortunate, and I'm blessed, right? Sorry, y'all. I know you're chatting it up over here. Yep, exactly. Ronnie's got it right. You can hide from the wind, but you got to run from the water. And from that lesson, Ronnie, what I learned is that, again, my decision that we're leaving. I'm not playing roulette with hurricanes. Is that's my decision. And I also realize that not everybody has that option. I feel very fortunate that we do. Hospital workers, first responders, they have to stay. They have to do that. Shout out to those people, y'all. Shout out to those people. We won't be playing that game. I'll take my guitars and my family and I'm out. Right. So I think it's important just to keep things in perspective. And if you guys can do anything to help, there's Florida Disaster Fund.org. I think there's so many places that are reaching out. We have people that are just making trips down to Sarasota, down to Southwest Florida to drop off supplies. Obviously, we're in touch with everybody, but like right now, the river down there is flooding and I-75 is closed. So like these are the type of things that people don't understand about evacuations and what it takes to make things happen. So y'all just pray for those people. Do what you can. You know, this is not a ploy to try to get somebody to spend money, but like, you know, if you feel called, you know, don't hesitate. I'm sure whatever the minimum is great because it's going to help somebody, right? But if you know friends and family down there, you know, be sure to let them know that you're there to support, you know, and open up whatever opportunity you can. You know, Andrea, glad to see. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was what a crazy story with Justin, right? Like the only person I knew down here. The crazy part is he used to work with me when I worked at PF Chang's as a manager. Justin was a server at that point, and he was just working to you know get through school or whatever. And man, he's become an incredible husband and father, and it's great to see who he's become. But he was the only person I talked to when we came down here, and I didn't talk to him until we moved down. I'm like, hey, we moved down, and he gave me a little bit of insights, and it was just what a crazy turn. Like that's Providence, man, him circling back around. So it was awesome. Living in Ruskin, we decided to stay. We're lucky it didn't stay on the original path. Yeah, it was noisy. Exactly, Lisa. Yeah. And you know, Ruskin is a little bit southeast of where we are. It's across the bay. It's on the inside of the bay. For those of you that don't know, I guess I could show you on a map too, but we'll get into that stuff into the future here. Like I said, I thank you guys for taking time. I did not plan for this thing to go the direction it did. I didn't realize I was going to get emotional about it. You know, I was never afraid, right? When we moved here, I mean, we knew like this is reality, right? But when you're, and that's easy to say, when you're faced with it, it changes things, right? But the thing that really was put in perspective for me is the whole thing about not being able to run from the water, right? So like if anybody's watching this and you know, just get out. I'd rather have been in my truck hunkering down in some parking lot worried about, you know, something flying across the parking lot than trying to avoid 12 feet of water. So that's the lesson that I learned. You just don't want to play with that at all. That's great. What do we got here? Tammy says prayers. You home affected. I'm out in the Midwest now, but grew up in Kissimmee, St. Cloud as a kid. And it breaks my heart. Yeah. And I mean, I saw a video of them doing boat rescues in Orlando, and that's how much rain those guys got. And that was the other thing I forgot to mention is like, it rained. They got, when I woke up in the morning and the reporter was reporting, she said that they had received like 8 inches of rain in 24 hours and average October was like 7. That is crazy. And it had already been raining for like a month, y'all. So the ground was saturated. There's no place for this to go. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy out there. My uncle's house is in Inglewood. I had water sucked out of the canal before it hit their boat. It was sitting in the mud. Yeah. Yes. And so where I'm at, I saw the furthest north I saw a video of water being sucked out of the Gulf of Mexico was in Palm Harbor, which is about 30 minutes north of me drive time. If you were to fly as the crow flies, probably 20 minutes, right? It's a good 20 miles. The report came out, I was reading through it, that water was sucked out of the Gulf of Mexico to the storm as far north as Panacea. That's almost to Tallahassee. That's crazy. And the eye of the storm was over 30 miles wide, which is as big as our county here. I live in Pinellas County, Florida. I guess I could pull up the map really quick. And I had a different plan for today. As you can see, it did not go that way. Let's do this together. All right. Here's Ruskin where Lisa is talking about. She's right here. That's Ruskin. I am, so I'll make this a little bit bigger for you. I am right here over by Ronnie. Right there. You put a little dot inside of there. That's me. So as you can see, they're talking about this thing coming right up into the bay here. And the dirty little secret about Tampa is people don't realize is like, this is all so low. South Tampa, Davis Islands, it's just so low. And what they were worried about was the storm surge coming up in here, right? Because they were talking about a 10 to 12-foot storm surge here, and it bundles up. They like the map I saw said it was gonna like flood all the way up to this area in here, which is like that, guys, that's miles. Okay. It is crazy when you think about, what potential damage we avoided here in Tampa yet again. And I've said this before, and man, I just made a video about it this year and it makes me want to cringe. Oh, let's take a step back so we can see it. Because this is where the devastation occurred, is this area here. I mean, it's just, I saw photos of these today. If you go to the Tampa Bay Times, they've got before and after photos, and it's crazy. I watched a video of a helicopter pilot, and he goes, there's no buildings here. They're all gone, right? And it's so sad. And you realize that it could be us. Andrea said Inglewood. That's right in this area here. And this is where all this started, guys. Like all week they were talking about this thing forming down here and then making its way. I'm going to make a mess of this map, but forming down here, crossing over Cuba, and then strengthening, and then coming up somewhere between Tampa Bay and then here. This is what they were telling everyone. And then that last day, it made that shift and made that right turn and came up here, man. I shared with you my story, right? I shared my story of like, I had time and I was still out of time. And these guys did not get 3 days notice, even though everybody said it could be anywhere, right? They were telling us for days it was coming. Tampa better get ready, right? And like I said, it was pulling water out of the Gulf as far north as up in this area here. That is, when you start to wrap your mind around that, it's crazy. Hurricane Charlie, and again, I'm not playing meteorologist, but Hurricane Charlie fit inside of Hurricane Ian. I mean, it was so big. 3,000 miles. Go look at the weather. It was in the Gulf of Mexico, and it was touching the tip of North America. That's how big that storm is, right? Cross over the state. Now, it's terrorizing. I mean, wow, guys. So I know, again, I'm not going to get into meteorology, Bill. I just wanted to first and foremost, thank everyone who watches this channel. Thank everyone who checked in on me and my family from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I learned some serious lessons. I shared with you my journey of how this went. I will share with you how to prepare. I will make a full entire video on how to prepare. Again, I'm going to be on live this Wednesday with a home inspector that we use here locally, and he's going to talk about the things we need to look for in our properties that may be hidden that could cause some damage here in the future. Something to make note of. Some people in Florida, it's in southern United States, but it's really in North Korea. That's absolutely a fact, by the way, y'all. And I say this all the time. Florida it's in the ocean. Florida is a peninsula, yes. And I know it looks like it's part of the United States, but it's in the ocean, y'all. It's in the ocean. And I live in Pinellas County, which is a peninsula on a peninsula in the ocean. It's insane when you think about it, right? Like, I understand just by living here, we are playing the game, right? We are playing the game. And, I've said this before, God is not making new earth. As a matter of fact, he's taking it back. And here's a classic example of it, right? So again, our hearts and prayers go out with all the people in Southwest Florida. Do what you can, y'all. Look them up, disasterfund.org, I think, in Florida. There are so many places to give. If your heart feels called, please do it. We will get into the nitty gritty about, hurricane preparedness, and we'll get into that stuff. We'll get back into real estate. Obviously things have completely stopped this week because for good reason. So we'll get back into more of that content, and you guys can expect, to find videos from me about what areas look like. I'm going to start dipping down all the way into Sarasota, because our friends in Sarasota had some challenges too, power outages. They had stronger winds down there. Some things they're going to have to be aware of. So I'll share that video content with you guys here in the future. But again, just thank you so much for chiming in. Any questions or specific areas, or people you're looking for, put it down below, man. Like, we'll share it out. We'll get it in the community. And I just want to say thanks for taking the time to spend time with me on a Saturday. Thank you for all the prayers. Thank you for all the concern. And we'll see you guys next Saturday, y'all. Have a great weekend.